Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Leafs Cast. My name is Mark Paul. Today on the show we're going to recap Saturday's win against the Penguins, why David Clarkson makes Phil Kessel so much better, and how the Vanek trade affects the Leafs. As well, we'll talk about why I'm disgusted by Bon Jovi's banner being raised to the rafters at the ACC. And finally, we'll preview the game against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday. This is Leafs Cast. I gotta be honest with you, I am so thrilled that episode 1 is finally here. This has been a dream and just an idea that I've had for quite some time. I'm a part of another podcast called EndToEndHockey.com is the name of the site. End to End Podcast is our cast, but I wanted something specific to the Leafs. I live in Detroit, and I am just dominated by Wings fans around here. It's not too often you meet a Leafs fan where I'm from. And if I'm honest with you, if I'm really honest and open myself up and allow you to see some of me, I hate the freaking Red Wings. I hate everything about them. I hate their fans. I can't stand them. How I respect the team. The team is incredible. They've won 4 Stanley Cups since I moved here in 1995 and been to 6 finals. I'm not saying that they suck or anything like that. I just don't like them. I don't know why. I just don't. When I was a little kid, my dad said, Mark, if you ever come home with Detroit Red Wings apparel, I literally will rip it off your back and throw it in the fireplace. So, basically my dad had a huge influence on why I hate the Red Wings, but it's just developed into my own hatred. And at this point, it's just something really, really fun to do. And you talk to people about not liking their team, and some people... How could you live here and not love the Red Wings? How is this possible? I just don't like your team. I'm a Leafs fan. I'm from Toronto originally. I don't know. I just hate your team, okay? Just let me enjoy hating you for a little while. Now, granted, there's been a few years where it's been really, really difficult to talk smack to people, particularly 97, 98, 2002, 2008, 2009. I mean, how are you going to talk smack about a team that goes to Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals? It's not that easy. But still, I will never forget the look on people's faces as they won that game in the end, and Lidstrom was stoned by Fleury. And one of the best moments, and gosh, I'm a freaking Leafs fan. Anyways, let's talk a little bit of quick news here. John Michael Lyles recalled from the Toronto Marlies. Tyler Bozak goes down. He was on the IR. He missed Saturday's game as well. And they have the cap space. John Michael Lyles, only $925,000 of his $3.4 million is actually saved by sending him down to the Marlies, so they definitely have the room. Other guys on the IR like Mark Fraser and Nikolai Kulemin. The Leafs have plenty of space. They don't necessarily like a guy like Lyles. Randy Carlyle, definitely not his biggest fan at all. But the Leafs, they need 7 defensemen to go on this West Coast road trip. They need a 7th guy, and they don't really have anybody else that they can call up that they think can play on an NHL team, apparently. John Michael Lyles comes up. He's played decent with the Marlies, but we'll see if he even gets a shot to go in on this trip. They take on Edmonton on Tuesday to start, and John Michael Lyles will be in the press box. Let's talk Saturday's game versus Pittsburgh. The first period, for the first time this season, I was thrilled. The Leafs actually came out and looked good in the first period. It was unbelievable. I can't tell you the feelings that I had inside. Just seeing the fact that the Leafs didn't take 20 minutes to wake up. It didn't take them 1/3 of the game to figure out their crap. They were there. They were pressing. And despite getting scored on, I know Letang scored that power play goal early, less than halfway through the first. But the way that we battled, and then just David Bolin scoring that shorthanded goal late in the third, the way the Leafs played, they weren't ready to roll over on the Penguins. And it was awesome. And then all of a sudden, second period comes. Granted, there's no goals, but my goodness, if it weren't for James Reimer, the Leafs had been down 4-1 and the game would have been over. Of course, the Penguins aren't exactly known for keeping leads, but James Reimer kept the Leafs in the game in the second period. He just flat out played great. And, there's this huge discussion back and forth. Bernier, Reimer. I got to say that you just stick with the hot hand at this point, right? Like, does Reimer just not come in on Tuesday? And I know we're gonna get into a little bit more of a preview of the Tuesday game against the Oilers, but you got to think, man, why wouldn't you just stick with the guy? Stick with him while he's playing well. And if there's back-to-backs, then you slide in Bernier, and if he starts to struggle, you move to the other guy. I mean, at this early in the season, it's not that important. It's, in my mind, the only time that we need to say, okay, hey, this is our guy. In the playoffs, we're moving forward with him, like it or not. Reimer or Bernier, whoever you want to choose, they're our guy that's going to more than likely start in the playoffs. The only time that you need to decide that is probably 3-4 weeks after the Olympic break. I mean, you're talking into March. Maybe end of March is when you need to say, this is our guy. Maybe a little bit before, but I don't think that it's bad to ride both of them, especially with the way that the schedule's compacted. I say just let him go, and I think that that's what Randy Carlyle's doing. It's why he's not naming a starter, because he doesn't need to. Because I think that players have an ability to say, I'm going to play as hard as I can every time I go out there. And you know what? I'm just not going to play 60 games. I'm not going to play 60. I'm going to play 45. 45 games in a season is not bad. And maybe you get to play a little bit more. Maybe you play a little bit less. But honestly, whoever's the hottest going into the playoffs, are they not going to be the starter? Are they not going to be the guy? And Reimer won't go away, and then Bernier will come back in and he'll play well. So I think it's just a good thing for the Leafs overall, the way that those guys are playing. We're still talking Pittsburgh game on Saturday, and obviously David Bolin had a great game, not just from the fact that he scored 2 goals, but the way that he played all game was great. And he got a good amount of power play time with Tyler Bozak out. He got 3.5 minutes of power play time. That definitely helped. And as well, he's on shorthanded. He only played shorthanded for 39 seconds, and he scored a shorthanded goal. But he actually led all forwards in ice time with 22 minutes and 39 seconds. So Dave Bolin really stepping it up, and I lied. Actually, Mason Raymond led the team 23 minutes and 6 seconds. Nevertheless, Dave Bolin had a great game. But there was 2 guys that I saw on the ice that were phenomenal that had no points. First guy is Colton Orr. Now, Colton Orr played 10 minutes. Now, he didn't have an enormous impact on the game per se, but every time Colton Orr was in the game, at least it felt like this, I noticed him. I noticed that he was in there. I noticed that he was allowing for some board play to happen. The puck got stuck in the Penguin zone with their fourth line out there a few times, and Colton Orr was a guy who kept the play alive. No, he didn't fight. He pretty much did nothing in this game, stats-wise. He had a couple hits, but the way he played was perfect, and in a way that I don't think that you could ask anything more from Colton Orr. And when he's playing like that, how much better does it center the rest of the team? How much better does it allow for guys like Trevor Smith and Troy Bodie to come into the fourth line to play with Colton Orr, to provide some consistency? There aren't very many teams that win the Stanley Cup without a fourth line, without some guys that can move the puck, that can trap the puck, that can kill some time, whatever it is, that can avoid getting scored on. And they did that against the best team, or the best offense, one of the best offenses in the NHL. They did that with their fourth line. Second guy that I want to focus a little bit more on him. I know David Clarkson's going to get all sorts of accolades and blah blah blah, and he wants to be the next Wendell Clark kind of deal. He was his idol, but I want to look more specific at why David Clarkson actually made Phil Kessel better in the game against the Penguins, and I think that this going forward is going to be something that we see. Now, David Clarkson, obviously, he's got a $5.2 million cap. He's signed for 7 years. He is here to stay. And did the Leafs overpay for him? Yeah, I mean, that's just the price of business. It's what you got to do in the NHL these days, is if you want to sign a free agent, you're going to have to overpay, and you're going to have to pay him into some years where he probably isn't going to be worth it. But the Leafs have the ability to potentially work around that. They could buy him out. Obviously, some of it would still count against the cap, 66% of it. But they can trade him. They can do all sorts of things. And that assumes that he's not to a level where he's at least worth almost as much as he's getting paid in 7 years. I see David Clarkson kind of as like a change of pace back in the NFL. You know, a guy that you're sending out there and you're not necessarily telling him, go and get us 6 yards of carry. Don't be an Adrian Peterson. We're not talking about an Adrian Peterson. We're talking about a guy who can go out and change the pace, grind a little bit, tire out the defense, and then open the game up for when your big guns come out. When a guy like Kessel comes out, David Clarkson allows for that to happen. He's a guy that can wear down the defense. He's a guy that will hit and annoy the superstars on the other team. Crosby, Malkin, and Letang were all given fits by David Clarkson. David Clarkson allowed for the rest of the Leafs team, for the top line of in this game, Kadri and Van Riemsdyk and Kessel, to move the puck more efficiently because of the way that Clarkson's line played. And I think that that's a huge thing that David Clarkson brings to the table that people aren't really talking about, that isn't going to appear on the score sheet. But it's something that makes a huge, massive difference for the Toronto Maple Leafs moving forward. And if David Clarkson can continue playing like that, the game against Columbus, we'll just throw it out the window. It was his first game back in 10 games. Everyone else is on a totally different level than him at that point. But as he starts to get his feet back, and he'll contribute, he's not going to go and score 5 goals this year. I think that it's likely to expect David Clarkson to score 20. If David Clarkson scored an average of 20 goals throughout the 7 years that he's here, I'm happy, assuming that he plays the way that he played Saturday against the Penguins. If he plays that way, and he grinds it out, and he gets in people's faces, and he makes the opposition take penalties and do things that they wouldn't normally do and have to change their game, then David Clarkson is worth every penny that we're paying him. Don't mistake money for statistics. You don't have to score 40 goals to deserve $5 million a year. If you can be the best in the league or one of the best in the league and annoying the crap out of people at scoring 20 goals, getting 25 assists, you can play some of the penalty kill if you need to. You can play the power play. You're so mobile in the way that you play. And I don't mean mobile in the sense that he can skate like Michael Grabner. I mean mobile in the sense that he's very flexible in where he can play. David Clarkson will be worth every penny that we get him. Especially, I mean, if we win a Stanley Cup, it's all gravy. It's all gold. So David Clarkson, he makes Phil Kessel better. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on, we saw a trade between the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Islanders. The Islanders sending Matt Molson, who had 30 goals a few years in a row, and last year 15 in the shortened season, so obviously still clicking, and a first-round pick in 2014 and a second-round pick in 2015 for Thomas Vanek. Now, I'm not really going to break down the trade. We're not going to talk Islanders, Sabres here. This is a Leafs podcast. We're going to talk Leafs. Now, how does this Vanek trade affect the Leafs? Well, you got to remember that the Leafs, they're going to play the Buffalo Sabres, who are in their division. I know the Leafs are also going to play the Islanders, but these games against divisional teams are that much more important. You're going to play them 5 times this year. 5 times now that they're not going to have to see Vanek. Vanek, since 08-09, he's scored 10 goals and 16 assists in 24 games against the Leafs. 26 points in 24 games. And the Sabres are 18-10 against the Leafs since 09. They play 5 times this year. Now, I know the Sabres suck anyways. But Vanek has been one of the big reasons that the Sabres have beat the Leafs basically 2 out of every 3 times. Now, with Vanek gone, it may allow the Leafs to just play better. I mean, some guys, they just play better against specific opponents, and now we don't have to worry about them for the 5 times. We played the Islanders 3 or 4, but the Sabres, for whatever reason, when we go into Buffalo, it feels like this, oh gosh, we're going to Buffalo. Let's just count it for a loss. There's no way we're going to win in Buffalo. I know that the last couple years we've gone 500 against them. Hopefully this year we can just sweep the table with them and put them in their place because they are terrible. And maybe even Ryan Miller will be gone by the time we actually play them. But Thomas Vanek being traded to the New York Islanders is a good thing for the Leafs, and they won't have to see him as much. So I am definitely happy about that. As well, there's something that's bothering me. Something that just drives me insane. How in the world do you allow Air Canada Center. It's the home